Hey guys, today we're in the book of Genesis, chapter 44. Continuing this story of Joseph and his brothers, um, we can see that he gave, if you remember yesterday, he gave Benjamin 5 times more to test the brothers. And we pick up today that he tells his steward, his assistant, his house manager, to fill up the man's sacks, to put the money back in the sack as he's done the last time. But notice what happens in verse 2, and put my cup, the silver cup, in the mouth of the sack of the youngest with his money for the grain, and he did as Joseph told him. So here Joseph gives them the grain. He puts their money back in the sack, the double portion of money, the 20 bags of money back into the sacks. But this time in the youngest son's sack, he puts the silver cup, the cup in which would have been there. This was an Egyptian importance. It would have showed authority. It would have showed pleasure of him, of the Pharaoh, or in this case of Joseph. And so here he says, "Hey, hide this down in the sack so they don't know what happens." As soon as morning was light, the men were sent away. You can imagine they were happily sent away. They were expecting the worst as they come to Egypt. They were fed. They sat in the court of Joseph. They had a good meal. They were loved on. They had grain, and now they're being sent away, and they were ready to go. But as they were going, Joseph told his steward to catch those men, catch his brothers, and ask them, "Why have you repaid evil for good?" Now, the brothers have no idea what's going on because the silver cup was hidden by the steward. But here, once again, Joseph is putting them to a test. You can always account on a test that you fail. When you fail at God's test, you better believe that God will bring that test back around in your life to see if you've learned or if you're going to pass that test, or will you fail again. And so the steward comes up and says, "Hey, why did you steal from Joseph? You took his cup." Now, there's one thing I want to talk about this cup. Notice it says in verse 5, "This is the cup that the Lord drinks, and by this that he shall practice divination. You have done evil in doing so." This idea of divination, okay? It's the idea of using this cup to cast spells, to put curses on. It's a lot of occult practices, which was very common in the Egyptian culture. This does not mean that Joseph was doing this practice. He's stating what this cup was used for. Okay, so it doesn't mean that Joseph was a part of this, because we know Joseph was a God-fearer and he was on the side of God. So there's no sense in that we see that he would fall into these pagan occult practices. Joseph would have remained faithful to the God of the Hebrews, right? So he's just explaining the cup, not explaining what Joseph is doing with the cup. And so what happens? Basically, the brothers say, "We didn't steal anything. There's nothing that happened." And notice what happens. He says, much like Jacob says, right? If you remember, Laban comes back and he says, "Hey, you stole from me." And Jacob says, "We didn't steal from you. If we did, I curse the person who did this, who stole something, and let them die." And we learned that Rachel did that, right? Same thing happens. They say, "We didn't steal anything. Let there be a curse on the one who did, and let them die." And we see this because the brothers, the 11, trusted one another so much, they knew that nobody else would steal anything, so they could say this. They didn't know that this cup was planted there by Joseph's servant. And he said, "The person who found it will die, and the rest of us will be the servant of Joseph, of this official who's in charge." And so they dig through the sacks. It says they all drop them. They go through them, and all of a sudden, in the last sack, the youngest son, Benjamin, they open it up, and there's the gold, or there's the silver cup. In verse 13, it says they tore their clothes, and every man loaded his donkey, and they returned to the city. And so here they found the cup and they tear their clothes. It's expression of horror and, "Oh, I can't believe what happened, and I'm so upset." and so sad of the events that are happening. But notice what happens. This says they all got on their donkeys and they came back to Egypt. They could have just sold Benjamin down the river. Hey, he stole the cup, take him. We're going back to Canaan. But they passed the test. They all came back with Benjamin. This is a completely different group of brothers than when they did this, when they did the harm to Joseph, right? Joseph is seeing if they've learned their lesson. And when Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, he was still there, and they fell before him the third time, right? So once again, remember, Joseph had the dream. They fall before him. They basically say there's no way he could do it. We didn't know that he would do it. Please forgive him. And then, starting in verse 18, we see this big, long story. Judah, one of the brothers, comes up and gives Joseph a sob story, right? And notice what he says, right? He talks about his brothers. He talks about, we have a father who's an old man. We have a young brother who is a child of his age. This would kill our father if we doesn't go back. He's giving them the sob story, right? He's kind of just like, hey, please forgive us. I promise you he didn't take it. Something happened, but kind of giving the sob story. In verse 28, it says, one left me, and I said, surely he has been torn to pieces, and I have never seen him since. Notice the very particular words of Judah. He does not say that one of his brothers is dead. Okay, notice how he words it. He says, surely he has been torn into pieces, and I have not seen him since. He doesn't say he's dead. He just says that by this coat that's been in blood, his father said, surely he was torn in pieces, and we haven't seen him since. So surely he's dead, but he didn't say that he was dead, because in the heart of hearts, he knows that he sold his brother into slavery. Let's see, verse 31, as soon as he sees the boy is not with us, he will die, and his servant will bring down the gray hairs on your servant, your father. Here, Judah and the other brothers care about their father. They did not care about their father when they sold Joseph into slavery. They knew Joseph was the most favored son, but they didn't care about their father, right? They take the coat and they put it in blood, and they come back and they even wail and show grief with their father, pretending to show grief, right? They didn't care about their father, but now we can see things have changed. And they say, please let us take back Benjamin. If we don't take back Benjamin, our father's going to die, and it's going to be horrific. And so notice what happens. Verse 32, he says that Judah himself is a pledge of safety. This means Judah said, if Benjamin doesn't go back, he's going to allow Jacob to kill him. But notice what happens, verse 33. Now, therefore, please let your servant remain instead of the boy as a servant to my Lord. Here, Judah does the unthinkable. Judah takes the place of a criminal. Right? He's not really, but in this story, he is a criminal. He's stolen something. He said, let me take the place of the criminal. You let the criminal go, and I will bear his sin. I will become your servant. I will do whatever you say. You would ask yourself in this chapter, where is Jesus? Well, it's right there. There's going to be another man from the tribe of Judah named Jesus that one day will take the place of a criminal, not just a criminal on a cross, but me and you, criminal sinners, and says, hey, don't punish him. Let him go to the Father, and let me take the punishment. And that's exactly what Jesus did on the cross for us. Hope that makes sense, and we'll see you as this story continues in chapter 45. God bless.